Good evening, Ms. Marcia.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Amen.
We're going to take a few seconds for a prayer. Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we come before the throne to thank you for the breath of life and another day. Father, we thank you for being our God and Lord and Savior. So we come seeking favor for NYCHA residents, that we may still have our rights. Father, you have brought us through so many battles, and you have not failed us yet. We asked you to speak to our elected officials to have empathy on the residents of NYCHA. After all, we are just asking for decency and consistency in our homes. We asked all these things in Jesus' name, giving you all the glory. Amen and amen. Thank you, Lord.
Amen.
Thank you, Lord. Good evening once again.
Good evening.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to welcome each and every one of y'all this evening for being with us today. We are very pleased to be able to welcome those who have been with us for a long time now, as well as those who are new to the community. On behalf of Neighbors Helping Neighbors, we'd like to welcome our elected officials. We are looking forward to hearing from everyone with their sincerest input and why. We couldn't have pulled this town hall meeting off without the hard work and dedication from Vernell Robinson and Christine Hackett. And of course, the members of Neighbors Helping Neighbors, who work relentless from day to day to make today a reality. Now, without further ado, I can't wait to hear your input on these demands. Help us save our homes. Thank you.
Good evening. Neighbors of NYCHA, friends and elected officials. This evening's conversation topic is the future of public housing. My name is Kimberly Combs and I live in Redfern Houses. Neighbors Helping Neighbors members are all NYCHA residents of each development here in Far Rockaway, Queens. I will be presenting an overview of tonight's agenda as follows. We will be speaking on RAD PACT, the Ocean Bay survey facilitated by Neighbors Helping Neighbors, the community demands, and the community pledge. I also will be presenting ground rules for a successful Zoom meeting on tonight. First, I would like to say our host has control of the meeting. The host will be watching whose mic is open and will have control over muting all mics, forgive me. We also will start with one voice, please. One voice makes it that each speaker is able to complete their presentation. Also, if you are on Zoom, you will look to the left of your Zoom screen and you will see the mic icon. To open your mic and to close your mic, you will tap it, and when it's off, you will see the red line, and when your mic is on, the line will disappear. If you are on the call, you will use your keypad and you will press *6 to open and mute your mic. As well as if you're on Zoom, you will go to the right of your Zoom screen and you will see it says more with 3 dots. You will press that and some icons will pop up. You will see the raising of hand. Can press that to raise your hand as well as lowering your hand. If you're on the call, you will use your keypad to press *9 to raise your hand and lower your hand. Also, if time permits and the opportunity for a guest to speak, the host will let us know, and you will be able to ask questions or make comments. Thank you. Once again, my name is Kimberly Combs of Redfern Houses.
Is it Michael?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. My name is Margaret Masick. I'm also a member of Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I'm from Oceanside Apartments in Far Rockaway. Just going to speak a little bit about RAD PACT. As we know, NYCHA has been, poorly treated by the federal government and poorly managed by the NYCHA management, where it's about 20 years or so where the money has continued to go down to the point where NYCHA was not even able to maintain itself, to the point where people were living in deplorable condition, whether it was sewages coming down from the ceiling when they go to the bathroom, where they have to put an umbrella over their head to go to the bathroom, mold and mildew and rats and roaches and things like that. That's not a thing where a landlord is supposed to let happen. And this is from our federal government. So because the money was never coming from the federal government, as you saw in the film, like it was supposed to, in 2011, President Barack Obama had instituted the RAD PACT program. The RAD PACT program is supposed to help us to stay stable. And it has not been doing that because we know in so many instances, RAD PACT has showed itself to be a failed, not a successful, but failed operation where people were still living in deplorable conditions under the RAD PACT, where it's supposed to be for stability, yet it was not, because some people are still dealing with mold, brown water, and leaks, and other situations where they shouldn't be, where we don't like the fact that we have one slumlord gonna give the duties for another slumlord, because NYCHA presents this as a remedy to stop what is going on, where NYCHA is supposed to own the land and own the building, and investors come and put money in so they can have the money to make the repairs necessary. And you have a private management running the new development, but at the same time, NYCHA is supposed to cancel their contract if they don't do right. But do the people know who to call? No. And then if there's do you have to go through red tape to even get to the call to let them stop? Where you have so many newspaper and news articles where it shows you that some of the developments that underwent RAD, they either had to sue, they either had to protest or do something to say that something is going on that is not right. And that's a problem for us to say that you want to put us in a situation like this, where some people, they're having these situations right now, like a few years later, or even while they're putting in the repairs, where there was an article where they was putting the sheetrock over the mold. So you could imagine within another 10 years from now, or even less, what is that situation gonna be? What is the state of that development gonna be? Are we going back to business as usual? And this is for profit. RAD is supposed to be a program for profit, where when it was public housing, it was for nonprofit. But for profit, we're gonna live under the horrible conditions also. That's not right. So we're asking also, to the government to even go further into their investigation. Not just us that went over across the street to do the survey. We want the government to do this also. And the other thing too, with NYCHA, we have a flat rent. where the rent can't go any higher. But with RAD, it can go a little higher where some people are having difficulties, the ones with the good job paying their rent or even saving enough money to move out. That's not right. So we don't feel that you're gonna tell us that this is a solution. What kind of solution is this when we have problems with it also? So at this time, we're gonna pass this over also to the next speaker to go even further to explain the situation of why we're dissatisfied with the RAD PACT program as residents. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Burnell Robinson, and I'm a member of Neighbor Helping Neighbors and a resident of Carlton Manor. Thank you, Margaret. Now that you've heard a little about what RAD PACT program is about, I want to talk more about why we did our survey and why we're taking it. Forgive me for not having my screen open for you to see me, but I have computer problems where I might stall. So I have to keep my camera off. So this story starts a few years ago when if you had asked me about my views on RAD, I would have said that I was on the fence. At the time, I understood the plight of NYCHA faced with failing to keep up with repairs. And so I felt that public housing was going through a paradigm shift that was needed. And I thought it would ultimately benefit residents. However, my suspicions were raised after hearing terrifying
Hello? Burnell?
which spoke to problems prior to and the conversion. Today, having also conducted our survey, I'm off the fence. I'm firmly opposed to the RAD PACT program in its current form, and I'm fighting to maintain Section 9. The decision to conduct a survey of Ocean Bay houses came about in April 2021. At the time, my neighbors and I learned that NYCHA was trying to fast track the RAD PACT program in the Rockaways, the remaining 5 developments. Meanwhile, we also knew that a vast majority of public housing residents was still in the dark about RAD and what it was and what it meant for their families. And further still, despite mounting evidence from legal advocates and rallying cries from residents, elected officials remained largely silent, and if anything, were continuing to promote the program as NYCHA's saving grace. Initially, we did not know what to really expect from the survey. However, our key objectives were community education and advocacy. We wanted to get information out about the RAD PACT and to bring residents together to have their voices heard. The community of Rockaway is small and intimate, so we thought that if enough residents of Ocean Bay houses shared their experiences, it would prompt a larger conversation about RAD PACT and for our futures, and how we collectively take action. At the same time, a survey could bring more facts to bear on the program that would be of interest not only to the community members, but hopefully also those empowered to represent us. This, in fact, was the paramount reason to host this resident town hall. It was to get our elected officials to hear us and to take action with us. So I'd like to talk more about the survey that we did and highlight some of our key findings for folks. Okay. Okay. Our key findings. We did the footwork to survey a little over 10% of the residents living in Ocean Bay from November to January of 2021. You can see the dots on the screen there. Those are the buildings that we covered. Slide 2. About a third of the respondents were not aware of their homes were part of the RAD program. And about half were unaware of the specific rights crafted under the RAD PACT program, which is a problem. Quality of life, third slide. While the majority of residents responded that they were satisfied with their quality of life in Ocean Bay houses and that their housing was mostly okay, nearly a third of the households reported that they were not satisfied or very unsatisfied with their housing and that their housing was mostly not okay or that they wanted to move. Our report card on RAD. Based on 4 questions from our survey, we asked, is management doing a good job? Is there an easy to use system for submitting requests for repairs? And are your repairs needs being met in a timely and respectful manner? Is new management transparent and considerate of tenants and their safety when making repairs? While about half of the residents responded that yes, management is doing a good job, more than one third said no. Again, a clear majority said yes, the system was clear and easy to understand or easy to use. And at the same time, more than a third disagreed. Some tenants specified their concerns further, mainly focusing on the challenges of contacting the management. Some were saying that they would have to go downstairs. They couldn't get through the management at all. More than half tenants reported their repairs were being met, while more than 1/3 reported they were not. Regarding whether management was transparent and considerate of tenants and their safety when making repairs, again, more than half responded yes, but 1/3 responded no, or sometimes. And you can see the grading that we gave each area. Is management doing a good job? They got an F-. Is there a clear, easy to use system for submitting requests or repairs? Are your repair needs being met in a timely and respectful manner? F. Is new management transparent and considerate of tenants and their safety when making repairs? We gave it a D. Oh, excuse me. How does private management under the RAD program compare with NYCHA? More than half of households surveyed responded that they either preferred management under NYCHA or found it to be the same. Only a little more than 1/3 of households preferred management by private partner under the RAD program. Similarly, nearly 40% of the residents said that private management was worse or much worse than management under NYCHA. Further, nearly 1/3 of households also reported that their living conditions had not improved, while an additional 1.5% reported that living conditions had gotten worse. Moreover, only half of the respondents indicated that repair needs were easily to address under the private management under the RAD. Additional changes. About half of the households surveyed noted additional changes. And about half of those households highlighted positive changes, and the other half noted negative changes. The positive changes. The most widely cited improvements by 18 households was that the buildings and grounds were cleaner. An additional 9 households commented on the improved safety of the building. For example, the front doors were closed and locked. Another 5 households noted that they appreciated the apartment improvements they saw, like the new painting and new cabinets, new floors. And while another 5 noted that the rules were now being enforced with like no smoking and you have to pick up behind your dogs. But when we did the survey, we saw a lot of poop, a lot of it. Okay, so the negative changes. The majority of negative changes fall under the category of issues with management. Residents specified further were noted that upkeep is not handled properly, while another claimed the private management was responsible for destroying the property. Another noted that there were I'm sorry, I'm trying to turn this off. Yeah, turn it. Yeah, turn it. Okay, another note that I'm sorry. Okay. You got it? Okay. While another still noted that workers were regularly hanging out in the hallways while on the job, 4 residents noted that it was difficult to commute with the management. Another noted that there was too much paperwork at recertification time, while others noted that they had to consistently give information to management pertaining to income. And final resident noted that they shut down the water at any time without any notice. The second largest complaint levied by residents was lack of access to the stairwell, which were locked. Residents' concerns about the stairwells were grounded in safety issues. Because imagine being stuck in there when there's a fire, you can't get out. The third largest negative complaint discussed by 8 respondents was about other restrictions that had been placed on residents, like use of property. Specifically, residents noted that community spaces had been locked. You couldn't barbecue on the property anymore, and you couldn't have a mat in front of your door, and there was no decorating in the halls. And some respondents clarified some of these rules were not new, but were now tied to fines if breached, including decorating the homes. Some of the fines that they cited were as high as $500, except for if you lost your key, that was $15. Additional notes said they spoke to negative changes. 2 said the laundry room was too expensive to use, and 1 noted that safety had not improved. Additional concerns and changes. Specifically, tenants noted increased paperwork, increased rents, and the threat of eviction. Nearly 2/3 of the respondents noted that residents now need to be certified twice, once with NYCHA and once with the private management, which causes conflict in the house and in the family. The majority of residents in the pre-conversion group indicated that their rent had increased since the conversion to RAD. On average, rents increased 3 times in 5 years since the conversion, at about $365. 12 residents rents increased every year since the conversion. Lastly, our survey found that 1 in 6 residents have either been threatened with eviction and or knew of a neighbor that had been evicted or threatened with eviction. Okay, know that the RAD program has flaws, which are affecting the lives of some of our neighbors and most of your NYCHA constituents. Whereas we have a set of demands of which we employ each elected official to uphold. We're asking you to please put people over profit and do the right thing. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Marcia Jones from Oceanside. I am presenting to you our community demands, and they are as follows. First, we demand that you stop RAD and the privatization of public housing. Elected officials must instruct HUD to place a moratorium on the RAD PACT program and cease the privatization of public housing more generally. The privatization of public housing has led to an erosion of rights and protections for tenants. A moratorium must be issued immediately and remain in place until additional demands are met. Second, we demand that you study the effects of RAD and public housing. HUD must analyze housing stocks throughout the country to determine the operating costs and ensure Congress and state and local governments are meeting the operational cost needs of each housing authority, and that tenants' rights and protections are being enforced under either model. 3, we demand that you issue a national state of emergency for Section 9 housing. The conditions in public housing are deplorable and violate our human rights while compromising our physical and mental health. In order to expedite adequate fiscal allocations and ensure that federal oversight leads to real change for tenants. A state of emergency must be issued for all Section 9 public housing. Physical and mental health and support must be provided as a part of the emergency response. 4th, we demand that you instate federal and tenant oversight of public housing authorities. HUD has demonstrated their inability to assess and remediate hazards of public housing tenants face. The U.S. Department of Health must step in, and FEMA should allocate resources immediately. A robust governing body of resident leaders must be created to oversee and directly inform decisions. 5, we demand that you allocate $100 billion to Section 9 for rehabilitation immediately and create a framework to increase funding to $180 billion by 2025. The Housing Act of 1937 made Congress financially responsible for funding Section 9. Their failure to do so has turned 970,000 units into slums. Between 1980 and 1988, Congress slashed investments in Section 9 in half. This trend must be reversed. Privatization is not a viable solution. Fund Section 9 now and in perpetuity. 6, we demand that you restore the Section 9 housing stock to 1999 numbers and work to fully repeal the Faircloth Act by 2025. Since the establishment of the Faircloth Act, we have lost Section 9 units to disrepair stemming from government neglect. We must restore the stock to allowable limits and expand the Section 9 housing stock by repealing the Faircloth Amendment. This is key to addressing the national housing crisis. We also must uncouple the repeal of Faircloth and RAD, which is a giveaway to the private sector that will only lead to more harm for tenants. The loss of public land, the further concentration of wealth, and worsening political inequality. 7, we demand that you support the sustainable and resilient rehabilitation of public housing campuses and units. Components of the Green New Deal for public housing must be incorporated into any legislation addressing the conditions within public housing. This plan envisions a long-term, sustainable, and resilient future for public housing that also strengthens Section 3 and NYCHA's commitment to providing jobs for residents. 8, we demand that you ensure that racist and derogatory beliefs surrounding public housing do not continue to impact policymaking. We reject the racist and classist language in the former Build Back Better bill that suggests our communities do not function. We are resilient, hardworking communities that have overcome the obstacles created by bad policy decisions, like those that further the privatization and financialization of public housing. We oppose any programming that would determine our vibrant communities. While we are fighting for these demands locally, these demands are national in scope. Additionally, we have a smaller set of New York City specific demands. 9, with respect to New York City, we demand that public officials take a more active role in overseeing NYCHA and bringing the agency back on track. Specifically, we demand that a forensic audit of NYCHA be conducted, that a new organizational plan for managing our homes be devised, one that does not include private partners or a new quasi-public financial institution, and that Greg Russ and that NYCHA's current chair and CEO be removed and be replaced with someone who is interested and committed to preserving Section 9 public housing. Thank you. Now, I am speaking to our elected officials. We ask that you all join us in the pursuit of these demands. We demand our Section 9. First, we want to ask elected officials in the room, one by one, if they will commit to these demands today. We will call on you one by one and ask you if you are ready to commit on these demands. If so, we ask that you raise your hand and read the pledge on the slide. If not, we ask that you explain why you are unwilling to support us. Please limit your response to 2 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Paul King, will you commit to our pledge?
Well, if I had more than 2 minutes, I'd love to go down all 9. I absolutely think that public housing needs to stay non-privatized. I'm a businessman and a Republican, so people would think I'm all in favor of privatization, but it makes my hair stand up like I'm Spider-Man. I see eventually a place where the natural progression is that the people who most need public housing won't have it. So I will pledge to, my default position is number 1 is against RAD and PACT. I think if they study the effects and they come back and they convince you and us that this actually could be a good thing or some version of it, then fine, but the proof needs to be in the pudding. We can't take the leap with your lives and then later on say, oh, we were wrong. So, I'm against privatization. I think there needs to be, I'm not going to be the president, so I can't issue a national state of emergency, but just like when Sandy crushed us and FEMA came here, if folks are living in houses with, no gas for 6 months, no heat in the winter, that's just as big an emergency. So there has to be an emergency interaction from HUD or other agencies. So I support number 3. Do you want me to keep going down? I'm not going to just blanket support everything, but I'd really like to explain how I feel about it and what we could even do even better.
Okay. So overall, it's a yay.
Overall, it's a yay. On number 5, $100 billion. I don't know if that's too little, too much, or somewhere in between. I think we need to think outside the box, not just to fix things, but maybe build some new things. Also convert stuff that really can't be fixed into commercial space and school space, so we can have people who are living in a public housing area also have jobs right there, get job experience, management, running businesses. I think it could be a much better incubator for opportunity. So I kind of have an out of the box perspective I'd like to talk through with you, and then we can figure out what the number should be.
Okay. We thank you, Mr.
You're welcome.
King. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is Khalil Anderson in the house? Monet Schultz.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Monet Schultz. I'm the Acting Chief of Staff and Legislative Director for Assemblymember Anderson. Assemblymember Anderson isn't on the call, as you all know. He is in session up in Albany and should be wrapping up next Friday. Assemblymember Anderson has been very steadfast on this issue and actually led the charge in Albany alongside a few other colleagues to stop the privatization of NYCHA and to reject the brew plant from going into the legislation. So we are very much so standing with residents in stopping privatization. Obviously, I cannot swear on the behalf of the member and read out this pledge, but please be sure that our office stands behind every item on this list. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to talk through more, but our office has been very public where we are with RAD.
Thank you so much, Ms. Schultz. Okay. Joseph Edwards, Executive Director of Congressman Gregory Meeks. Joseph Edwards.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Joseph Edwards. I'm the Executive Director for Congressman Meeks. And we do have your list of demands in which I will take them back to our Chief of Staff, Robert Simmons, for review. And then basically they will be getting back. The Congressman is not with us today as he is out of the country. And so therefore, it would be inappropriate to make a commitment without his knowledge and permission.
Is that it, Mr. for Mr. Meek's office. We thank you for your
Thank you.
comment. Thank you. Do we have? Okay, are there any other elected officials in the room? Please chime in the chat. Thank you. Hello? Hello?
Who's saying hello?
This is Ms. Jones. Are there any other elected officials in the room?
So this is Anthony Gay here, community.
Welcome.
liaison.
Hello, Mr. Gay.
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you very much. Representing Councilwoman Selvina Brooks Powers. Of course, the Councilwoman is behind the residents and what is best for the residents. So as my other colleagues have said, we have your demands here. I will take them back to our staff for review, and the Councilwoman or Chief of Staff will get back to you as far as how they would proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else, any other elected officials? Okay, next, we have Teresa, call to action.
I'm crying because somebody hurt us today. We have been living in horrible conditions, freezing, no heat, elevator broken. I'm a person who has a wheelchair. And so to hear the few people and the 50 people that are on here, it touched my heart tonight. So I don't feel like I'm someone, they said someone is from Sanders' office. I want to let them speak first. Someone's from
Yes.
Sanders' office. So can you speak, please? And then I'll speak. Woo.
Who's from Sanders' office?
I think Brenda said no one is here from Sanders' office. So Teresa, you
Right.
have the floor.
Okay, so I'm touched because 50 people showed up for us tonight. We demand our 9. It's like no one knows how it feels to live in NYCHA and have to be treated by so many people, not just by the NYCHA, but sometimes by the police. You know, we're police because we live in NYCHA. You know, sometimes we treated bad because we live in NYCHA. Like we don't get the best care, we don't have the best food. So it's like, it's not, our mental health is not good because we're living under bad conditions. And so we need, we're calling to action. We need y'all to come in here and support us. This is a lot of people can't afford to move in a place but NYCHA. And they're fixing our outside and making it look really beautiful, everything. But the inside has mold. The inside has broken elevators. The inside has windows that are not working. The inside has people walking through sewage. I actually know, I was part of a board of the TA resident board. And I know TA board members that were walking through sewage just to walk into their building. And these are the conditions that we live in. So it's like, how can we trust NYCHA to take us to someplace else when they haven't? It's just like you taking your baby to a bad baby. You giving your baby a bad babysitter. NYCHA has not been a good sitter for us. They have not cared for us. So why would we trust them to take us and put us in other people's hand? Who knows what is going to happen to us? So we asking that you would complete the form. The form number is HAHTTPS // twice. It's tiny. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say it's tiny. You know, I'll say it tinyurl.com / NH Rockaways. Let me repeat that again. HTT // tinyurl.com /NH Rockaways. Number 2, you can email us at neighbors helping neighbors for Rockaway at gmail.com. You can also call us at 929-300-5381. We need your support. Without your showing up for us, without you legislators getting these bills passed to make sure that we are not put out on the street, that we are not homeless. I have a wheelchair. I cannot live in the street. We have people that are sick who have emergency medical machines, and where they gonna live at? You know what Sandy did to us. You already know how Sandy devastated us. So why are y'all just gonna leave us out here and let us suffer like this? We demand our 9. I'm gonna ask everyone to come on and say, we demand our 9. I need everyone to unmute their stuff and just say it. We demand our 9. We demand our 9.
Man,
And now
we
demand our
demand
9.
our 9.
We demand our 9.
We demand our 9.
We demand our 9.
NYCHA Lives Matter.
Yes.
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 NYCHA Lives Matter.
with your help, we cannot have quarterly living. The cops say we live in cages. Those are some of the things that have been said to us here in Redfern. I'm sorry, I'm from Redfern houses. They have said to go back in your cage. That's not nothing that no one should be saying to you. So this is the kind of abuse that we're dealing with from being in NYCHA. It's like we're treated like we're less than human because we're NYCHA residents. We have some good people that live here. We have people that love the community, that want to build up the community, that want to help us, that want to bring healing. But we need y'all to come and help us with that money. Bring the money and bring new programs that can help NYCHA residents live a quality life. Now we're going to turn over. Okay, I done lost my point. I just got overexcited because I saw so many beautiful people here tonight. Now we're going to turn over to Ramona, who's going to talk about saving Section 9. Ramona, you on, Mom.
Ramona?
Hey, sorry about that. I'm doing 2 events at the same time. So let me get a little settled. Okay, so I'm not gonna do video because I really would prefer if we all just looked at the video that we prepared on public housing. And I know that you guys talked a lot about the trajectory and like how we've gotten to this point in history. So Safe Section 9, I'll give you guys a little background on that. We started about a year ago after coming to the conclusion that for us in public housing, we haven't been really getting what we deserve. And one of the key things that we need to do to make sure that that happens is actually to start lobbying at the congressional level, because Congress has always been responsible for a budget, but hasn't stepped up to the plate. So as we try to do that, we take on different activities with tenants. We do teaching, lobby trips, and lobby training. And we've been doing that locally, engaging our elected officials in different ways. And now we're getting ready to head to DC. So with that, I'll stay quiet for a couple minutes so that you guys can actually have the video. There's no sound. Kristen, maybe if you can. Okay. Yeah, I think you were on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Go
I can
ahead.
hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
A lot of people associate public housing with major cities like New York and Chicago, but the United States' 970,000 public housing units are spread out over all 50 states, with 20% located in rural areas. All public housing is paid for under Section 9 of the Housing Act of 1937, which allows the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, to distribute taxpayer funds directly to each city's housing authority. The law's stated purpose was to address, quote, the acute shortage of decent, safe, and sanitary dwellings for families of low income, end quote. Section 9 caps rent at 30% of resident income and gives residents the right to organize into resident councils to determine how money will be spent within their developments. Under Fiorello LaGuardia, NYCHA became the first agency in the U.S. to provide publicly funded housing. Although welfare recipients and people of color were barred from these early developments, years of pressure by housing advocates eventually loosened these restrictions. And by the 1950s, working class Black and Puerto Rican residents had begun to move in. During the fiscal crises of the 1970s, these increasingly diverse developments became targets for budget cuts by politicians pandering to white anger toward the gains of the civil rights movement. Nixon halted all construction of new public housing in 1973. And in 1974, Congress created the Section 8 voucher program to push low-income tenants into the private market. Under the Reagan administration, HUD's budget was slashed even further, from $36 billion in 1980 to $15 billion in 1988. Reagan justified these cuts by stoking resentment towards public housing residents with the myth of the welfare queen, a person of color living lavishly off taxpayer assistance. As this stereotype took root, the combined effects of disinvestment and the crack epidemic devastated public housing and the lives of people who lived there. Instead of providing adequate funding, politicians used this crisis as evidence that public housing was an outdated model. With the Hope 6 program, President Clinton proved just as willing as Republican administrations before him to keep up the cruel cycle. Hope 6 provided grants for housing authorities to demolish existing developments, but they were not required to replace them with the same number of low-income units. Between 1993 and 2010, 98,592 units were demolished under Hope 6. Only 12% of those displaced actually moved back into their homes. When the Faircloth Amendment was passed in 1998, it made the number of Section 9 units at that time the absolute limit to the national public housing stock. So today, HUD can't fund any construction of public housing above that 1998 level. Decades of austerity have left NYCHA with $40 billion in unmet capital needs. Residents experience the shortfall every day through shoddy repairs, chronic utility outages, and life-threatening mold and pest infestations. Following a familiar playbook, elected officials and NYCHA CEO Greg Russ now want to use their own neglect of public housing as an excuse to eliminate Section 9 through privatization schemes like RAD in the Blueprint for Change.
Okay, so I know that some of you watched this in the beginning. For Safe Section 9, it's really important that everyone understand the status of Section 9 across the country is one that is the same, right? So like the battle that we're having in New York City is also being held in Memphis, in Tennessee, in North Carolina, in Oakland, California, in San Francisco, California, in Boston, and in Minneapolis, right? So oftentimes as tenants of public housing, when we're having conversations with our elected officials, we tend to center on this issue like if it's a local issue, when in reality, this is an issue that affects everybody that is housing vulnerable. So working poor, disabled, and seniors. So I hope you guys will take the time to take note of the Facebook group. and also of our website and the petition that we're currently circulating to remove Greg Russ. A couple of things have been happening over the last couple of weeks that really demonstrate to tenants how our wishes, and Kristen, you can stop sharing. I think they've got that, the thing right. So like a couple of things that are key that have been happening over the last week is continues to try to push legislation on us that would privatize public housing. And they're starting to, right? So when you guys were listening to the presentation and seeing how PACT and RAD negatively impacts tenants, we have to brace ourselves for this to continue to happen because our legislators continue to ignore us. So one thing that I wanted to make sure that I shared with everyone tonight is that it is critical that you start having conversations with your tenant association president, that you figure out how they feel about privatization and ensure that they're not misrepresenting your desires. And then another action item that I would want everyone to take is if you have the bandwidth, please call your state representative and your state senators. We're going to be going to DC on June 13th, and we're taking about 2 buses of tenants down there. During this visit, we are hoping to actually meet with our Congress people and with some of the elected officials from around the country that have public housing, but have really not been stepping up, right? We understand as tenants that the reason why public housing is being privatized is because over the last 30 years, Congress, our state, and our city tenants, our city council members, sorry, haven't been doing their job. And it's time to call them on it, right? And in order to prepare tenants to actually participate in these really important meetings, we are holding lobby trainings. These are happening this week, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And then we'll be planning another week of lobby training, at least 3 more dates after June 1st. The deadline to register for the trip is going to be June 1st. So if you are interested, please make sure that you register as soon as possible. If you need support with that, just call the number on the flyer and leave a message and we'll help you. And we really encourage you to start attending our Wednesday night meetings so that you can stay up to date on what's happening, not only in New York City, but throughout the country. So I will leave it at that unless someone has specific questions. As you can see on the flyer, in order to participate in the lobby trip, you must attend the lobby training. This is critical because we need to make sure that the conversations that we're all having with our elected officials here in New York and in our different states all say the same thing, right? We don't want someone to walk into a meeting and undermine us. So in order to prepare you for that properly, we're asking that you do participate in the lobby training. So once again, unless you guys have any questions, I'll go ahead and, sign off.
Excuse me, Kristen, can you tell us, can you call the name of the email and the number that people have to use to contact with you? Say it out loud because some people are on the phone, they're not on.
Oh, yes, that's a good point. So the email is save section 9, SAVE, section SECTION, and then the number 9 at Gmail. So save section 9 at gmail.com. And once you email us there, you can either ask us for additional information on our meetings or on the lobby trainings that are about to be starting or the trip. So just shoot us an email and we'll be able to connect with you through there. And then the phone number is 516-669-0, sorry, I forgot the last number. Let me look at it again. 0462. So the phone number, if you want to leave a message, it's going to be 516-669-0462. And all of the Zoom trainings will be on the phone. And, Brenda has a question regarding the results of the trust. So what we heard today is that it's gone through the Ways and Means Committee. So it is advancing. The way to stop it is to make sure that you call your state representative and that you call your state assembly member. Another question I'm seeing is another key target for phone calls is going to be Carl Hastings. Okay, so Kristen is updating the number. The number is 516-669-0642. And what we're going to be doing is that we're going to look at the concentration of RSVPs and get buses to the where most people are RSVPing from, right? So we'll have someone, a bus leaving from the Rockaways. We don't have specific details on that stuff right now, just focus on getting registered and getting signed up for one of the lobby trainings. You have to commit to the 2 days. It's a working trip. Looking at the draft agenda, we're gonna have 1 free hour on the 13th, and you'll have probably like 40 minutes to have lunch after lunch on the 14th. So this is a full-time trip. There's not gonna be any downtime. We're gonna have you from breakfast to dinner. So that's the 13th and the 14th. But I think it's going to be one of the most important things that we'll be doing as public housing tenants, because we have to make sure that we are actually getting the message out and making demands, these demands that you guys presented tonight, to Congress. There is no cost for public housing tenants. So everyone is welcome, and you should, if you can, maybe bring money for like snacks, and if you want to buy things along the way, but your meals, hotel, your primary meals, so like breakfast, lunch, and dinner are going to be covered, and your hotel stay will be covered, but it's a shared room. So you'll have a queen size bed and you'll be sharing with someone. So when you're registering, if you have a preference of, if you're a couple, if you want to share with like a good neighbor of yours, then just let us know about that. But for now, just register and get ready to attend the lobby trainings.
Can you explain to us about the trust mean? You said we need to call our council, our assembly person, what we tell people about the trust, so we can know what to say, the exact words to say to them.
Yeah, so basically what we want to say to them, support the trust. You want to make sure that you let them know that you are a public housing tenant and that you want public housing to remain public, and that you say no to the trust.
No to the trust, okay.
No to the trust, yeah.
Okay.
If you have the bandwidth, I would say you want to target your state representative, your state assembly person, Carl Hastings. And if you have extra time, you can call the mayor, because he's decided to introduce himself into this fight in the last few days too, and he's not supporting us. So I'm gonna head over, I'm gonna mute out. Kristen is putting in the chat a recommendation of what people can say. But unless you guys have any questions, I think we're good. So you could say, I am a public housing resident from blank development, and I say no to the trust, and you're calling state representatives and Carl Hastings. And if you want to bother the mayor and you have the time to do so, I would encourage you to, because he is silencing us. And for the elected officials that are on here tonight, I think it's very clear where tenants stand. So anytime that a vote comes to you regarding the privatization, PACT, RAD, the blueprint, or trust, our answer is always going to be no. We're not flexible, and we don't want any housing plan that's going to take us out of Section 9. So with that, congrats. This is a great meeting. I'm really excited about everything you guys are sharing.
Thank you, Ramona.
Took the survey we did on a RAD development out here. Now you can hear that there's a lot of flaws with the program, but we'd like to hear from you. Are there any concerns? I know, and especially the fact that not one elected official is on this call. I have concerns because the staff can't really speak to what their positions are. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mr. Edwards, you can speak to the position of the congressman as it relates to public housing and this RAD PACT, the blueprint and all of that. Do you know?
As I said earlier, I can't commit or speak on behalf of the congressman. Basically, I'm taking your demands back to our chief of staff who will review them, and then we will get back to you.
Okay, so you don't know where the congressman stands with regards to public housing? Okay. Who else was out there? Does anybody else have any?
Yeah, hi, this is Brenda Temple. I was just wondering about Sanders' office. Was there a representative? Did I miss that?
No, Sanders' office did not. Nobody from Sanders' office showed up. Okay, yeah. It speaks a lot to me.
No show. Okay.
We appreciate you guys who coming on the call.
Sorry, can I just say Sanders' office, the lady was out sick. She texted me. Do you hear me?
Yes.
He has the whole staff, but that's okay.
I know, she said she was supposed to have somebody covering, but I don't see anybody that covered her.
Vanell, Mr. Brian from Donovan
Community
Richards'
Board
office.
14.
Got his hands up. Community Board 14.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure which Brian you're talking to. I'm not from the congressman's office. I'm on Community Board 14.
Community Board 14, yes.
Okay, I had a request, first of all, if there's any possibility. Bernal brought this this whole subject to my attention, parts of which I'm familiar with, parts of which are confusing me. And I wondered if, first of all, if there was a possibility that this presentation, if somebody could forward me this presentation, and I will forward it to, I'm on the Land Use Committee for Community Board 14. I think this is a very valid, very interesting subject, and I should know more about it. And I certainly, I support the efforts without having fully studied them. I'm Googling stuff here as we speak. I'm glad to see future Congressman Paul King on here, who I know is very active in the interest of not just the West End, but the East End. And he's proven that since I've known him on the community board. So I am profoundly interested. I won't say I'm profoundly confused, but there's a lot to this. This is a very fast and furious presentation. It covered a lot of things. Like everybody else, I am saddened that more elected officials are not on this call. I don't know if that says either they're very busy or they don't want to know. But I certainly would love to know more about this, and I intend any information that I'm given. I intend forwarding it to the chair of the Land Use Committee. The Land Use Committee, and I also look forward to having a discussion, a more in-depth discussion with future Congressman Paul King, who I think has a serious interest in this. This is something that has to be addressed. We have to think outside the box. New York City Housing Authority is a disaster, but they're just an agency of New York City. They are not HUD. And there's a lot of parts to this as to how the money is channeled from the federal government. Is it by way of grant, which means they wash their hands when the money goes, or there's a lot to this that I don't want to hold this call up with, but I certainly support the efforts of tenants of NYCHA and those that are disenfranchised and those for whatever reason are going through hardship. And some of the things I've heard on this call, get back in your cages. I'm white. I'd strangle somebody if I heard them say that. It just torments me. And I have my own personal experiences with NYCHA, although I'm not a NYCHA tenant. I've had to deal with NYCHA as a property owner and having a tenant or two from Section 8. And the Section 8 tenant was not the problem. NYCHA was the problem. And it boggles the mind as to how inept, how confusing. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. I've talked to people at various levels of NYCHA, and their answer to everything is, I'm confused. I'd say, okay, well, let's stop again, because my language is English. Let me re-explain to you the problem. And then I'm confused. And they're just confused, and they're confused, and they're confused. And I believe one of the main reasons that they want to involve themselves in privatization is because they simply could not handle the job themselves. They demonstrated beyond any doubt that they cannot handle the management of NYCHA facilities, and now they want to privatize it. And that may or may not create a whole slew of additional problems. And like I said, I really can't speak at depth on this subject. I look forward to discussing it, certainly with future Congressman Paul King. And there's so many names I've got written down here, those that have attended this call, those who haven't attended this call, who's who, what's what, the training coming up. I would be very interested in that. So I'll leave it at that, except that I take my hat off to those that organized this town hall meeting, and praise God. This will be worked out for those of you who have faith and are willing to put a step forward and move forward. I'm a firm believer. I often hear people say, it's a dead end, and I say, well, what do you do with a dead end? They say there's nothing to do with a dead end. Sure, there is. You go and get your sledgehammer, knock down the wall, and proceed forward. So I look forward to supporting your efforts.
Thank you.
But again, I look forward to finding out more details. So again, Vernal, if she could forward me, or whoever the host of the meeting is, if she could forward me back possibly a link, because I know the meeting is recorded. And I look forward to really getting into the nuts and bolts of this. So, I don't want to talk on a subject that I don't understand all aspects to. I know that future Congressman Paul King is certainly somebody that thinks outside the box. So he has the sledgehammer in the trunk of his car. If we meet at a dead end, you just move forward. And thank you for giving me the time to speak. Be well.
Thank you so much, Brian. And that's what we need, guys. We need allies. We need neighbors. We need our elected officials. We need people to come together and stand with us, so then that we can make better use of our time to save our homes and for the way that we know. So
who's that speaking?
That's Burnell. Hi.
Oh, okay. I thought I recognized voice. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? LaWanda has her hand raised.
Yes, I want to know, because we talked in the last, not the last meeting, but the last meeting I was on, we talked about the elected officials getting the demands. So to me, even if they wasn't on the call, their representative should have been told us something on how they felt. Or did they not get these demands?
No, they received them.
Oh, okay.
I can speak, but
they're telling us without telling us.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, the thing about it, LaWanda, for all too long, people go to the voting booth and they just check down the line. They just check down the line, or they check with what they're told to check. Well, I really think that we have to
for yourself, every time we have an election, LaWanda get a group of people to come with her to go vote. So when I take my people to go vote, we know how we vote.
Yeah, but the thing is, we have to get the word out more so.
Yes,
we really have to work more on getting our neighbors informed and involved. That's the only way we're gonna change and upset this problem in NYCHA, that folks feel that they don't need to fund it.
I totally agree with that.
All right, so if there aren't any more, I don't see any other hands up.
Burnell, how do you raise your hand? I don't know how to raise your hand. I'm on my.
*6, but you go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi, I'm Tanika Jones, so I'm Marcia's daughter. I don't live in NYCHA, but I grew up in NYCHA, so I have a question for you. So I have several questions. What is your timeline? So you're going to go to Washington to rally, right? So I think that's at the end of June?
Yes.
Okay, so you meet in Washington, you lobby. And I think that I did hear one of your members did say this, that first of all, the person that is in Washington that you will be lobbying for is in front of is Congressman Meeks, because he represents this district. And
Yes.
then you would be lobbying in front of our senator, which would be Chuck Schumer, because those are the people that represent us in Washington. So did Meeks he didn't have a representative on?
Yes, but he couldn't speak. He didn't, he's on.
He's on, but he couldn't speak.
Yes, but
Okay.
he couldn't speak to anything.
He couldn't speak to anything. Okay. So I just had to all say, so I was wondering what your timeline is. So if there is money allocated to NYCHA, say like they do give you some money, and how long do you think it would take for them to repair some things that you need?
Oh, that's a really good question, because you're still dealing with mismanagement, and then identifying where it's gonna be spent. I mean, there's so much involved in that.
Exactly. So I want people to keep that in mind. I really think that NYCHA and some of the conditions that you all living in are deplorable, and they need immediate attention. I don't think that some of your conditions can wait even 2 or 3 more years. I think that some of the conditions that I see, and I don't know, and I'm not going to ask people's income, and I'm not going to ask their age range, but I do believe that the majority of you are more closer to seniors, citizens, than middle age or younger age adults. That's one thing. So you don't really have the time to wait for that. So understand that people do not like RAD and all of the privatization that goes with that. I just was wondering if it was easier to make a request for RAD to change some of the way that they operate.
Well, we're asking for an evaluation of that program.
Okay, so I think that might be a little bit more easier to get that program evaluated, and because that program is already in place, more so than, because Section 9 looked like to me that they took it all apart. And it looks like that they kind of like rearranged Section 9 to RAD and all these privatization. I think that maybe the interest could be more so funneled to changing RAD and all of these other privatizations to fit more of your need, and maybe that would get your help a little bit faster. Because I see the need for not only your apartments being fixed, but I see the need for cameras. Because the problem that a lot of people are facing, especially Oceanside, is that when RAD came and took over Ocean Bay, a lot of the problems from Ocean Bay then transmitted into Oceanside and took Oceanside and drug it down. So I think that, maybe some rewording of a document or something, and maybe speaking to the people and the funding of RAD 9, of RAD, and asking that to be tweaked more to where they are fixing the people apartments, because I heard that with RAD, that what happened is people didn't have a phone number or something for their apartments to be fixed, or they couldn't have a right complaint system. Because honestly, I really feel that the government has already made their choice.
Yeah.
And the reason why I believe that they figured that they could go with this privatization was because it's easier to get undesirables out underneath a private corporation more so than a public. It's easier, and I think that's the reason why they went with it.
But I also, young lady, you said some great points. But the thing about, we need Section 9 in order to have certain things that help us. We can't get rid of Section 9. Section 9 is like the main meal that we need. It's
I
just like,
think that maybe
right,
we could
Absolutely.
right.
work on them, maybe RAD, that privatization part of RAD and all of that. Incorporating more Section 9 into it. Because
My
I look,
hand is up.
Yeah, they're not
Sorry,
gonna
my hand is up.
Mhm.
RAD, Blueprint, Section 8, they all also have a timeline that is not an overnight fix.
Right.
And then also with the hanging out, from my understanding, they still have a lot of the hanging out at the Ocean Bay also that you don't know about. Okay, but
we don't know about it. It's going to be hanging out
but they
all over.
know, no, but there is there, and because Weisel spoke to me about it, and he's a very hardworking person. Without him, they would have overran the buildings already, and that's only one person, so it doesn't stop everything.
Nothing is going to stop everything because I don't live in NYCHA, but I do live I live in Waycrest, so I understand about nothing stops everything. We have cameras, we have 24-hour security, we have gates and everything, and still I just put a notice up underneath my neighbor's door to stop the marijuana smoke. Okay, and I just did that just now. So I'm just saying nothing stops anything, but we do need some safety measures put into NYCHA, I really feel, because I really feel that the majority of the people that are on the call I know that you care about where you live because you wouldn't be on it, but I know that most of you are probably more so seniors, and you need that safety. You need safety. We're living in a time where people just don't care.
Wait, just before anybody else speak, I think Mr. King had his hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on something that Tanika was saying. Is like federal government sometimes just takes too long for things to happen. They can debate this plan and then allocate money, then get contractors. It take years before things get fixed, and people can't wait. So I was thinking that something along the lines that you've got your issue in national state of emergency. I think we could perhaps build specific demands into that are smaller dollar wise, but we need security, we need heat fixed, we need all these things fixed now, this year, not over multiple years. So I think that's something we could put teeth and specific demands into. I think that's got to be part of it because we need to stop the bleeding while we're figuring out the long-term plan.
That's what I'm talking about. What office are you from?
I'm just a kid from Rockaway, but I'm running for Congress.
Oh, you're running for Congress. Okay, so
Well, what position you for running for Congressman Meek to do the same thing that Congressman Meek officers are doing?
No, he will be running against Congressman Meeks, but you're
That's what I'm
Republican.
saying. That's what I'm saying. He will be running. He'll be in charge of the same office that Congressman Meek is over. That's what I'm asking. Yes.
You're a Republican running in a blue, a very blue yellow. We call us yellow dog Democrats. So you're a Republican trying to take over a very seasoned Democrat, and honestly, what you're saying is what needs to be done. And that's something that you heard Congressman Meeks' rival say. So I'm gonna be honest with you, Congressman Meeks' representative is not on the call, but what meeting neighbors, what your group needs to do is put some things into place and say, we need these things, like our friend here who's running for the seat said, we need certain things fixed now. Safety is one of them underneath the public safety, underneath this whole state of emergency. And you need, bare minimum, you need heat and water. Anybody who's living in an apartment without heat and water is totally a devastation. Heat, water, mold, and security.
And also, they need proper stoves. A lot of people in here don't have proper stoves. They're without stoves. Some people were without stoves for months, and they didn't have stoves. People in their apartments didn't have stoves. But it's not just here in New York. It's all over the country. This is happening. That's the thing that must.
Well, we want to focus on our immediate area right now.
Right, exactly.
And our immediate area right now, because one thing about New York State is, even though we see things really bad in New York State, New York State has a lot of things in place, as crazy as it may seem, that other states don't have in place. So I think that that's something that we need to put in place. That maybe you could contact Vernell or however you contact one another to put some emergency things in place.
Yeah, and you know what gets to me is that every elected official has a funding that they can allocate, you know, and it really bothers me that years have gone by and elected officials, I can't say that they have cameras and all things like that they can put in place, you know, cameras, and that could help reduce a lot of the problems that are here, you know.
Yeah, the cameras, the water, the heat, stove.
Yeah, but when you're getting into the water, the heat, and that's capital projects, and you know, that's where the big bucks come in at. And
That's something where you could get, but that's something you can get immediate money for. But you just have to put the document in writing and say, listen, underneath emergency, like I think that when you go to lobby, you have to bring attention to about 4 or 5 big ticket items that people can't say no. And heat, water, and cameras for safety and stoves is something that nobody could say no to. I mean, cameras maybe, but heat, water, a stove, they can't say no to that.
The mold.
Plumbing issues, you can't say no to that. Okay? With all of the craziness that's going on with them trying to take women's rights away and all the other stuff that this government is doing with all this nonsense. But I think that when you go there, have about 4 or 5 big ticket items and say, this is what we need.
Excuse me, young lady, Kim has a hand up, Miss
This is Kimberly. I was hoping, because I'm keeping attendance, that everyone that's on the call, even if, I'm not sure even how you do it if you're on the call, but I'm trying to keep attendance, and I see many names are not in the chat with their address or contact information.
Maybe the email. Maybe put your email, your name and your email.
We also have, that's what you have to say, Kim, June hand. Someone named June hand is up. Y'all know who June is? June has her hand up. Ms. Vernell.
That is, where the hand is up. June Champion. To put it down.
For instance, like
sorry, I'm here. I was having trouble unmuting. First, I would like to say to Tanika Jones, I love the way you just presented everything that you just said. Sometimes when you are trying to make a statement and get things accomplished, it's hard to explain it when it's not everything is not going to be yes. It's not going to be everything that people want to hear. You understand what I'm saying? I work for city government as well. And that what you said was amazing. Paul King, one of the things that Tanika Jones just mentioned, regardless of if this is a very blue, I don't care if it was sea blue, equated blue, I don't care. I'm looking for change. I don't live in NYCHA anymore. I grew up in NYCHA. I have a 98-year-old grandmother who lives in NYCHA. Okay? I don't care what you are. Democrat or Republican, but if you can make things happen, you got my vote. Because clearly the representation that we had all these years is not working, and it's time for us to pay attention to it. That's all I want to say. God bless.
Thank you so much, Jill. That's again why we're having this town hall. You know what I'm saying? To really see where our electeds stand with us. And it's unfortunate, you know, that we can't get too far with this now. And we'll definitely have to follow back up with it later. Doris, your hand is up?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say regarding the cameras that before I left office, that I was talking with our councilwoman and with Brian Honan regarding cameras for Oceanside, in which it seemed to me like we were moving in a good direction in terms of getting them. Because at the beginning of this year, you know, I heard back from Brian and from our councilwoman in which Brian was saying how much money there was in the budget for the cameras. So the money is there from what I got and understand. NYCHA has the money for the cameras for Oceanside. The last thing that the councilwoman asked in the email was that Brian give her the amount of money that each development in the Rockaways had in their budget for cameras. So my understanding in that email and that conversation they were having back and forth, that the councilwoman tagged me on, that there is monies in the budget for us for cameras. But because it seems to me none of the presidents are really pushing or advocating in that area for those cameras,
But wait,
that
wait a
I'm
minute,
not
wait,
finished,
before we
but I'm
go,
not finished. I'm not finished.
No,
I
Doris,
don't know. Somebody spoke, I didn't speak.
No,
I didn't say a word.
I don't want you to
But I
go
didn't say a
there.
word. I didn't say a
want you
word.
to go south.
I did not say a word when people were speaking.
No,
I
just said
gave
it's
respect.
not for that,
I
my-
gave respect.
Doris,
I
but we're
did.
talking about what we're talking about, and the only reason why cameras came up was the fact we were talking about the whole allocation or the whole funding of Section 9. All right, so we're not talking about, we're not really talking about individual developments.
And I didn't say individually. I did not say, because the email is not talking about an individual development. The email specifically speaks of the developments, I mean, in the Rockaways. It was speaking of and I said that. I did say that. I said that Brian Honan that the councilwoman asked Brian Honan regarding funds, how much funding was there for each development that was in her district. Each development. She has 5 developments under her umbrella. So she was asking him.
Yeah, about the
she was asking him regarding each development and how much, because he gave her a figure for Oceanside. He gave her the figure for Oceanside. So then she asked him, well, what about the other 4 developments? I want to know how much money is in the budget for the other 4 developments. So I'm saying that it is up to the presidents to talk to our councilwoman regarding money for the cameras, to speak with her, Brian Honan, bring these people to the table and talk with them about the funding. Because according to Brian Honan, the money is there for the camera. NYCHA has the money. They have the money. But if we do not push the issue. And if we do not push the issue, then, you know, nothing will be done.
Right, and so Canvas will help us to get things in order, but we're talking about the whole.
No, I
of
understand that there's,
right,
no,
right.
I understand
So-
that there's a whole package. I understand about Section 9. I understand that NYCHA, that we do not want to lose Section 9. You know, I'm 100% with us not losing Section 9. I'm 100% about, behind NYCHA adhering to the 964 regulations. I think a lot of times I don't understand why our elected officials do not know the 964 regulations, why they don't, you know, understand what Section 9 is, the difference between Section 8 and Section 9. You know, this part of it is a great mystery to me, even like with Mr. King. Me and LaWanda had a conversation with him on Earth Day. The first thing I said to Mr. King was, you need to read the 964 regulation. If you want to represent public housing residents, you need to understand the 964 regulation. You need to understand Section 9.
Yeah, and at this point, I think that's what we're talking about today.
No, I understand what we're talking. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
No, I know
exactly.
what we're talking about.
So I'm glad you brought it back. I'm glad you brought it back.
Yeah, I know what we're talking about.
Right, I'm
So
glad you brought it back.
but I don't understand why our elected officials, even with Khalil, when Khalil was running, that was my first question. Like, Khalil, do you know what the 964 regulations are? He had no clue. And I didn't understand that. So it's like if our representatives don't understand what it is that their constituency are under, the guidelines that we are under, that secure where we live, then I don't understand how are they representing us.
Exactly, and that's
how are they representing us.
Right.
Well, that's
And
why
so-
June 28th is the day that what we need to do, family, is to follow up with our legislators in our community we need to personally call them. We gave you the number. What's the number again? Anyone knows the number? You can call us and ask us for all the information about all the legislators who has that information for us. We would give you their name and their numbers, and you can personally call them and ask them, why don't you know this information? We sent the letters to them in advance. They confirmed. It wasn't like they did not have the information. They was given information in advance. It's just that we need more manpower. We need more people like you, Ms. Doris, different ones to call and help us, because we cannot do this by ourselves. We have been reaching out to people. We had 50 people in it. That was a blessing, but we did not have the legislators, and it was sent in advance. It's not like we didn't send it to them. They choose not to answer. They choose not to come. So why did they send?
Okay, Ms. Teresa, I'm sorry, I have to cut in. Is this meeting going south?
I have one more thing to
This was a
say.
good meeting, and now it's just getting negative. And
I
Vernell, why
have
you
one more
allowing
thing to
this?
say. I have one more thing to say. And the last thing I
Vernell,
wanted
you
to
really need
say
to
was
go.
that Mr. Gay from Selvina Brooks' office, I did see that he was on the line. Whether or not he's still on, I don't know. But I saw his name came up. Mr. Gay. He was he is or was in the room.
But
Well, he can answer for Oceanside. He can answer.
All right. So now that we have gotten to the end of our meeting, I want to say and let everybody know that as a follow-up to this, after the trip, the lobbying day trip to DC, we're going to come back and we're going to have some civic workshops. We're going to really begin to go deep in understanding the government and who represents us and what they're supposed to do and all the rest of that, so that we can start holding our electeds accountable for representing us. Okay, so we're gonna do all of that possibly in July, definitely before August, nearing the primaries. I thank everybody.
Could
There
I
are
just say, could I just say a quick word?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, well, first of all, I know I bring up Congressman Paul King's name many times during the call, and I'm actually not one of his staff or, you know, I'm not lobbying for him. Again, I just find him very proactive on the community board. That was the first part I wanted to say. The community board basically is we're not elected officials, we're advisory, but we're advisory. We're put on the board by the local elected officials. And that presents a problem, certainly not for me, but it presents a problem for the community at large, because you have a lot of go along to get along types. And that doesn't just include the people on the community board, it includes actually many of your locally elected politicians. They want to play safe. They don't want to endorse a position if the position undermines their success in various levels of government. So basically they'll hide their head, and they weren't available, they couldn't get online, their Zoom didn't work, but they basically don't want to be in a position. And I'll give you a very clear position, because I've made my position clear. I'm very interested. I want to look further into this. I know I keep saying congressman because he is going to be the congressman. Congressman Paul King, I know, wants to look deeper into this, but I take the risk of being thrown off the community board, just disappearing. All of a sudden, he didn't do his education, he didn't do this, he didn't do that. And I've seen it happen. And I'll be perfectly frank with you, I don't give a rat's ass. I stand for what I stand for. I'm not owned by anybody. I'm not owned by any politician. So you're going head to head with a lot of people here. You say Adams is now weighing in on this. I'm not sure of all of the elected officials who've chosen not to be on this call, but they don't pay my rent. They don't pay my mortgage. They don't pay my bills. So frankly, like I said, I don't really give one rat's ass, and pardon my language, but that's just how I feel. So if I take a position on this and I work as hard as I can, and if Paul King decides to do the same, I guess I'll be getting visits from the Department of Buildings. I'll be getting visits from New York City Department of Finance. I don't really care. You have to be passionate about what you want. This conversation, you know, it went many directions. It got diluted because there's many issues at hand here, from security, from conditions at the buildings to, it's just a spectrum of different issues all wrapped into one. But I, like I said, number one, I didn't know Paul King was going to be on this call. Number two, I think his idea of using FEMA or some emergency power act to elevate this quickly, otherwise this thing will get drowned and diluted and moved around the table, and we'll be having, or you'll be having this conversation. Well, you referred to elders. I feel marginalized there myself, because I like to view it as being the early evening of my life, not elder. But anyway, that's a separate subject. So again, like I said before, I hate to see this die here. I look forward to, I might be, no pun intended, I might be one of the few white guys going there for that 2-day meeting, but that's okay. I'll pay my way. I look forward to hearing everything that's has to be said about this, because these problems aren't going to go away. Even if I was of a racist mindset and I said, well, shove it over there, shove it here, it's still going to be here. These problems need to be addressed. Security issues that you mentioned, I think that personally these buildings should have residents involved in a committee that's also has a police involvement. So the police can't run away and say, hey, well, you know, the cages or anything else, and the tenants have oversight and say, well, okay, we're actually sitting at the same table with the police, and now we're looking into how we're going to resolve this situation. So there's really a lot here. I find this whole thing intriguing, but it has many moving parts, and it requires a lot of time. And to those of you who have already put a lot of time into it, certainly I take my hat off. And as I said before, I look forward to hopefully getting a copy of this meeting so I can study all of the dynamics, and to researching it myself, so I'm not just going along to get along. I want to know everything that's moving in this. Again, I think NYCHA is a disaster. You can use all the names. I don't know the positions of Brian Honan. I don't know the positions of many of the administration. I know their names, I know their numbers, I know their emails, but I don't know their position. And a lot needs to be looked at here. And I think the community board is a good place to start, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't rest on it 100%. But there are those on the community board that will elevate and hold their locally elected officials accountable, i.e. ask them directly in front of the community board, what is their position? And I don't know, either they run out the door and say, I can't address that right now, my phone is ringing, or they state their position.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you giving me the time. You're
Thank you, sir.
I
Thank you.
wanted to let you know, Brian, I will get that stuff to you, but in closing, I wanted to just remind everybody of our third demand. And it was to issue a national state of emergency for Section 9 housing. So then that the funding can come down to make the necessary repairs. There it is, issue a national state of emergency. There you go. For Section 8, for Section 9 housing. So that is something we're calling for. I thank everybody.
Hello, Ms. Vanell? Ms.
Uh-huh.
Vanell? Yes, this is Anthony Gay. I just want to say something real quick before closing. Thank you, Ms. Doris McLaughlin, for reminding them that I am here. So when I'm here, I am the ears for the councilwoman. So I definitely would love to have the slides shared with me so I can bring that back to her. All of the NYCHA presidents know me, I think, pretty well. We have talked about the camera situations throughout all of the areas for the whole Far Rockaway. And if anyone has any issues, they know they have my email. My email is in the chat. You can reach out to me. You can text me, you can email me, you can call me. I think all of the TA presidents pretty much know that. We are very accessible. And everything that you guys said here today will be heard by the councilwoman. And you can for sure know that. And you guys have met and spoke with me, and any issues, any regards that things that you want to bring up, please do not hesitate to reach out to me.
Mr. Gay,
Thank you, Anthony.
Anthony Gay, I'm sorry, can I just quickly say, Anthony Gay, if any chance you could give me a call? I've been trying to reach you for a number of days, but I did get through to somebody else, but I've been trying to reach you regarding an NYCHA issue. If you could give me a call, I'll put my number on here. If you have a pen there, are you still on the call?
Sure, absolutely have a pen.
In the chat.
I hate putting
in the chat.
This number's not for, this not,
Brian,
okay.
put it in the chat.
My email is in the chat. You can email me directly.
No, Brian, put it in the chat.
I heard you. No problem. Got you. Okay, thank you.
Listen, I'd like to know, Mr. Anthony, when Marcia asked, was there any elected officials in the room or representatives, were you on the call then?
Yes, I was, and I spoke up.
He did speak.
But now
he
did speak. That's what I thought. Okay. Now I just wanted to make sure. I'm sorry to see the hand up, but I thought it was in there.
No problems. No problem at all.
All right. So if anybody else, does anybody else want to share a final word before we close out this meeting? We have 1 minute before 8.
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
I would. I just wanted to know, are you planning or doing anything for us to show these elected officials that we're trying to remove them out of office? Is there going to be anything done like that?
Well,
is there going to be any kind of rally against them, or we have the local newspaper like the Waves and so forth? So under them, on their watch, they never gave us service. They only come out when we with the photo ops, or they need the votes and stuff to stay on the ballot, get on this ballot, or upgrade and stuff. It's in that form.
Right. So no, like I said, and the beautiful thing, I think that's Cynthia talking.
Yeah.
Okay. The beautiful thing about Neighbor Helping Neighbors is that it's literally just that. We come together, we discuss things, and we work them out together. We plan on how we want to move together. So one of the things that I'm saying that with these civic workshops, that's the first step.
Okay.
It has been mentioned that we go protest in elected officials' offices, and a lot of things have come up. All right, but we're taking it one step at a time as we
I get
move
you.
along.
I just wanted to ask because when we was also having a conversation about the immediate help right here and now, you know what I'm saying? So even with that, remember, they don't even have supplies to fix our doors. Remember when we need stuff like that? Oh, we don't have this, we don't have that. So I understand, you know, in the corporation scope of everything and stuff about the rallies and lobbying and stuff. But I'm just saying how they've neglected us on small. So I just wanted to put it out there for everybody on the phone that we are all in this boat together.
Yes.
But yes, and the thing that's really, you know, that's on the tip of my tongue to say, the only way you send a message to people like that is when you hit them in the pocket. You remember how they used to do the report cards and stuff? If you know you get your A's for your works and this and that and stuff, then you get your pay or whatever. Maybe something like that. So when we holding the hand to the fire, they've been telling us anyway, because that's what they did again. This is not the first time that this happened with no shows, but we hoping that this be the last. But that's what they said tonight when they didn't even have the decency to send a rep. They didn't even just, you know, could have made a call. Even if they couldn't, they could have called Burnell or the host to this, the speaker or whatever, and say, listen, I stand with you guys. This is what I'm doing X, Y, and Z because I know you guys need our support. But they didn't even show respect on that form.
People need to show that in their vote. Make sure you choose carefully when you vote.
So I wanted to put it out on the table that even small things like that. They educated us to tell us when the fire department comes in here and they do an evaluation that New York City Housing is giving summonses. They have to fix this and fix that. And I don't know if we're the only building. I'm quite sure we're not the only development. When they send out the investigation, you're doing the inspections. Do you know how fast you get repairs? All the doors that have been broken for months and years at a time, when the inspection comes, they fix them because that's protecting their job. So the other 364 days or the other 360 days that we're living here, we don't matter. We don't matter. If it takes 2-3 days for them to get it fixed to protect their job, that's what they do.
Yeah, but
So I just wanted, being that the meeting was being recorded, I just wanted to get that in because I want nobody to say that we never opened our mouth. Carlton Manor and all other developments been screaming for help forever. We went through years of no heat and hot water in here. But as soon as they said the news was coming, who shows up? They showed up because they needed the people, the whole population of whoever was watching, to know that they showed up.
Yeah.
But when we called them before, they never showed up.
They showed up late. They showed up late.
They showed up. They showed up. I'm just saying to you, babe, they showed up because it was being
But everybody
broadcast.
saw they were late. Everybody saw they were late.
We're not talking about time and late and stuff. We're not talking about, we just saying that was what they chose. They chose because it was going to be televised.
That's what you got to do.
We already know they late. If you called them on Monday and they didn't get to you till the 2 years later Monday, you know, they was already late.
Yeah. Well, hope these things will change if we learn to stand up together and raise our voices. We have to come together, but we have to come together.
Because they check when who vote for them. When they start losing votes, then you see they're gonna take action, but not before then because they check all the names. They know whoever and who voted for them. That's how come they keep sending us mail-ins.
Yeah. Well, that's why I say it's important for neighbors to help each other. We have to reach out to one another. get
Yes.
each other involved, because it's hey, come on. It's been said that NYCHA residents don't vote, and that's why we get treated the way we get treated. And I'm saying it's time for that to change. It's time for that to change. We have to come together to be able to hold each other up in the face of all these adversaries and all of these things that's holding us down. So with having said that,
It sounds like they play attack then.
Go ahead, Vernell.
no, with having said that, it's 8:05. We don't want to hold anybody any further. We thank you so very much for participating. If you're interested in following along with us, the information is there on the screen. Please take it. If you're on the phone, the number you can call to reach us is 929-300-5381. And the email is helpingneighborsmaroc@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you. This was a great meeting.
Good night,
Good
all.
night, everyone.
And
Great
blessings.
meeting, Jen
And
Bernal.
thank you for coming.
Talita.
Yes.
Oh, you're here. Hey, Talita.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate y'all.
All right,
Good night.
Good
night. Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Good night, Kristen.
Eddie Martinez came. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Everyone just logged in. We appreciate y'all.
Okay, vote.
Good night.
Good night.